We are officially live. Great. Well, I'm excited to get started. Jordan, I'm so pumped to have you here. This is going to be a great workshop. You've got some great insight. We're going to teach some college students some amazing things, some of the things that you have learned and done through your own Growth Mindset University, which is awesome. And I think that'll be great to just kind of share your perspective with the students that we're with today. But while we're waiting, we're going to start in about 9 minutes. So by the way, if you're a student watching the recording right now, fast forward 9 minutes, we'll get started in essentially at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. But if you're getting in live, we started a couple minutes early so then we can allow enough people to come in live and get started. So Jordan, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you're here.
Well, Garrett, it's a joy to be with you because I admire the work that you do. It's a noble cause.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's cool. It's honestly, I love the concept of people connecting together, getting connected with a mentor. And sometimes they're like that first foray into mentorship, but especially with like this workshop, with it being all about how to network in a genuine way. I think that's something like one of the biggest skill sets that students are starting to build right now is less thinking about like, what can this person give to me? Like coming in with this expectation and more about just, I want to build a relationship. I just want to see where this can go.
Well, yeah. You hear the phrase "go-getter" a lot of the time. You know, he's a real go-getter. She's a real go-getter. But Bob Berg wrote this amazing book, a classic that I only learned about recently in the past couple of months before I hosted him on my podcast. He wrote an amazing book called The Go-Giver. And there's a whole series there, like the Go-Giver Influencer, Go-Giver.
We just talked about this last night.
Aha. So, so I guess the basic principle there is, you know, giving not just because it's like not like the right thing to do, but because it's actually the most beneficial to you monetarily and career-wise. Of course, I've butchered the entire thing. Bob could say it so much better than me, but I'd prefer to be a go-giver rather than a go-getter any day of the week, every day.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, and it's consistent. I mean, I haven't actually read the book yet. I'm actually right now in the middle of Principles by Ray Dalio.
Yeah. That's a mammoth of a book.
I'm doing the audio book. I find that I
did that too.
Yes, I'm a very slow reader, and so every morning when I'm walking the dog and just like getting ready for the day, I can do audio because that I can eat that up. I can really work through it. Whereas if it's a book, it just takes me a really long time to digest because I'm sitting and I'll read and then I'll think about it. Whereas I feel like I can process better when I'm just listening.
I find the same thing, and it's been I've consumed more audiobooks than ever this year, though I'm still more a fan of reading the physical book. I feel that I retain so much more when I read the actual book because I may read the same paragraph 2 or 3 times before I understand it. But in an audiobook, most of the time you're just going all the way through. And if you don't understand the last paragraph, like you don't go back 99% of the time. You just keep powering on through. So when I'm in a time crunch, like if I'm preparing for a podcast guest and they have an audiobook and I think it'd be beneficial to read their book, which it is, then I do that if I haven't read their physical book already. But for subjects that I care like super deeply about, I prefer the physical book. But I tried, Ray Dalio's Principles, back to that. I said it's a mammoth of a book. I tried doing it about, maybe it was a year and a half ago, beginning of last summer. And I actually failed. I failed to get through it. I got 10 hours through the audiobook. And I think it's 18. You probably know better than I do. Is it 18, 19?
18 hours?
Yeah, the audiobook.
I think it's 16 hours.
Okay. Yeah. So I did not finish the last 3 hours. I will admit to that. And it's very rare that I don't finish a book. I feel like that is just the utmost failure to like start a book and not finish it. I always feel like I gotta finish it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it is a big book, but I will say, I don't know what I'm thinking about an hour, like 4 or 5 right now. So I'm about maybe a fourth of the way through. But I'll say this. I love the way that he tells the story because it is in the form of a story. It's not dense. It's not thick. I mean, and I'm also a history buff. So when he's talking about different crashes of like the 70s and 80s, it's like, I remember studying about that. I remember learning about this through like economics class and history class. And I'm like, man, I can put the dots together because that's a really cool perspective. Because like, I don't know, when you think about it, and I like movies and I like learning about things like, when you think about Ray Dalio and him coming up and building up his company, it was very much at a very similar time as Jordan Belfort and the Wolf of Wall Street, right? You know, like think about it. Like they'll at a time you could probably, and I don't really know, I wasn't there in the 90s, like actively following him, but I would imagine that both his company and Jordan Belfort's company were very much like kind of like the two up and coming, like hotshot, like financial investment firms.
Polar opposites too.
Very polar opposites.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I will say Jordan Belfort's content's really good. I've enjoyed reading The Way of the Wolf. I mean,
yeah, I listened to that on audio a while ago too. Yeah.
It's good. I think like if you can get that many people to be just like rally around this, and in terms of just like building up your sales acumen, I mean, if you can build yourself up that big, you've got to be doing something, I think, right now. Obviously, if there are some ethical things that you've got going on, that's never a great thing. But I mean, yeah, I definitely think it's so funny how scientific Ray Dalio is. Whereas the other way it seemed like certainly appeared like the Jordan Belfort was very much like brute force.
Mhm.
We're going to like come through and make this happen.
Yeah. Whereas what?
I was just gonna say it was with Ray Dalio. It's very much just all focus on the science of like what did we learn? We failed on this. This is our algorithm now. This is how we update, iterate, pivot our algorithm. That sort of thing.
Absolutely. I feel like one of the only things that's coming to mind right now from Ray Dalio's book, I don't know. I just remember reading about, I think it was Bunker Hunt. He was like the richest. He was one of the richest men in the world. Like,
yes,
I don't know, maybe like 30 years ago. And maybe I'm wrong, but I thought he like lost it all or something. And I remember going down the rabbit hole of like research and just looking up this guy.
Yeah,
it was really intriguing. I wish I remember more about it, but
he was like the oil tycoon.
Yeah.
Who he killed it, but then the economy was changing because of something that was going on in Saudi Arabia. Oh no, that had to do with the Iran conflict. And sorry, this is why like I'm super into the like super nerdy about the history thing. It had to do with the Iran conflict. So the price of oil was skyrocketing. So he wanted to hedge his bet. So he invested in silver. And that was a really good bet. And silver skyrocketed. And Ray Dalio was like, hey, silver wasn't like $4 a share or whatever. It went up to about 15. And he was like, hey, I would suggest getting out. And then it ended up going up to 50, and this Bunker Hill's like, nah, I'm staying. And then it all dropped all the way back down to like 6 or 7, and he just went broke.
Yeah, I don't remember the point he was making, but that's thank you for refreshing my memory there. I couldn't remember too much about it, but that's exactly what it was, the silver.
I think the point he was making was that when it comes to building an algorithm and identifying like what are the right moves, like it's all about, I guess, perspective and learning. So his mindset was he got out at 15. And sure, did he wish he would have stayed riding up all the way to the 50? Yeah, but he's sure as heck also very glad that he didn't stay in long enough to be there for the fall to 10.
Right.
So he can systematically look at the markets in a way that allows him to predict what's going to happen in the future, even though there might be a spike right around the corner. He can't necessarily predict for that because that's totally up in the air, but he knows eventually what's going to happen and he's already there and prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, students, if you're just jumping in right now, we're going to get started in about 1 minute. But Jordan and I are just chatting, getting to know each other, just sharing a little bit about some of the things that we were doing. So Jordan, what did you focus on over the summer?
What did I focus on over the summer? Well, focused on building a process-driven business so that I could take on new people, interns, employees, and have them actually know what they're doing. Have them come in and have these processes so foolproof that they do it exactly the way I would do it. Essentially, I guess I worked on replacing myself over summer. Yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's I think a goal for a lot of business owners. is to get to that point where you can start to set a ball in motion, where you are out of it, and like you can continue to focus on the things that you really enjoy doing, and the people on your team are really enjoying what they're doing as well.
Exactly. And that's why I'm in Delray, Florida right now. I mean, usually I live on the other coast, but and I was in Long Beach Island in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Pennsylvania last weekend. Like, I can do that and not like stress, because like I have other people like taking care of everything that needs to get done, because like, we've optimized these processes now. And it's been a great thing because I'd go crazy without it.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's jump in. So let's get started. It's 3 o'clock. We're going to get rolling. My name is Garrett Mintz. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. Today's workshop is all about how to network, how to build relationships with people in a genuine way, how to not just think about it as the transaction, focus more about, okay, how are we going to build this relationship in an effective way and really just build strong relationships. Our guest today is Jordan. I'm going to introduce you in just a moment, but for right now, I want to get the program started. I want to talk about some of these key things. Jordan Paris is by the way, Jordan Paris is the founder of Growth Mindset University. I'm going to give a full intro in just a moment, but I am going to talk a little bit about what we should do in terms of setting the expectation for this workshop. So this workshop is going to be about 45 minutes of content with about another 45 to 50 minutes of content with another 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions, by the way, during this workshop, post them in the comments area. Share with us a little bit about what you are thinking, what questions you may have for Jordan or myself, or just on the topic of building relationships with your mentor. By the way, by this moment in time, you should have reached out to your mentor. So if you've not reached out to your mentor, reach out. You've got nothing to lose. Like if you're telling yourself like, oh man, I want to wait for this career fair to happen, or I want to wait for like this to happen. Like, don't wait, reach out. You've got nothing to lose. It's time to get started. Now, I know you might be nervous, by the way. I recognize that there might be some things that you're going through in terms of just figuring out exactly, well, what do I say? Or what if what if this doesn't go the way I want it to go? So I think before really diving deep into this, I want to ask you a question, and that is, what is your greatest fear when it comes to meeting a professional in your field that you've never met before? So students in the audience, I want you to just answer this right now. What is your greatest fear? Write it in the comments section. So I want you to talk about what is the things that you have that are holding you back. By the way, fears are normal. Everybody's got fears. Everybody's got fears. It's totally natural. It's totally normal. But the best way to combat those fears and overcome them is to put them out into the open and just share them with people. Because at the end of the day, fears are the things that hold us back from getting what we want in life. And when we can put them out into the world, we can start to acknowledge how bullshit they are. So I want you to write in the comment section, what is your fear when it comes to meeting with your mentor, when it comes to meeting any professional in your field of interest that you've never met before? Write in the comment section. I want to see your comment. So by the way, when it comes to this workshop, I want to set the expectation right. While you're making these comments, I want to set the expectation right. I mean, if you come into this workshop and you think to yourself, well, man, I really, I'm thinking if I just show up to these workshops or I just meet with my mentor the minimum amount of times, I'm going to get handed an internship or a job offer, or get accepted to a grad program like on a silver platter. I'm here to tell you that that's not how this program works. I'm going to set the expectation, because at the end of the day, you get out what you put into this program. And this program can help you immensely and have people landed internship, have people landed jobs, have people gotten accepted to the graduate programs. Absolutely, happens all the time. But if you think you're just going to get handed it to you, it's not going to work like that. And this workshop today specifically is all about how to build genuine relationships, because if you're speaking to people and they feel like, man, this person only reaches out to me when he needs something or when she needs something, they're not going to follow up with you. You're going to lose a lot of relationships because they're going to only think about you in the transaction that you're trying to gain from connecting with them. So I really want you to focus on building strong, deep relationships. That's what we're going to talk all about today. So I'm going to check out, what are some of your fears? Post in the comments. I want to learn what you guys are fearful of. What are the things? I've heard different things like, well, I'm afraid of looking dumb. I'm afraid of, what if I ask some dumb questions? I can tell you that, I mean, you're 22, 21, 20, 19 years old. It's okay. Like at the end of the day, you're not expected to be an expert. Some people are afraid that, well, what if I don't impress them with my acumen or my knowledge? What if I don't have things that are going to overly, stimulate them in the conversation? It's okay. By the way, if you don't know an acronym that they're using or something that they're saying, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, like you can ask them. They're not expecting you to be an expert at 22 years old. I think that's something that's really important, really crucial to understand. So other questions, the other fears that I've heard before in the past from previous nights workshops this past week were not coming prepared or worrying that the conversation may stagnate, that it may not go the way that I want it to. And I want to challenge you, because at the end of the day, if you come prepared with questions, if you come with a genuine eagerness to learn and keep that conversation flowing, just learn about what they have to say and keep picking up the conversation, just taking a genuine interest in what they have to say, you're going to build a strong relationship, because people love to talk about themselves. So I appreciate you all sharing that. So let's jump in. So there are three key things to being successful in this program. And I've talked about it in the first workshop, but I want to reiterate it right now. And that is your strategy, it is your story, it is your state. And I'm going to go over that right now. And I said that in reverse order of importance. Your state is so crucial. I mean, when it comes to being successful in this program, when it comes to meeting with a mentor, when it comes to going a networking night or a pre-professional night or a career fair, or any time that you're going to be meeting with somebody else that you want to leave a strong impression with, what is your state? Are you mad? Are you sad? Are you dejected? Are you angry? Are you jealous? Are you tired? Are you stressed out? Are you hungover? Like, if you're any of those things, you're not going to be in a state conducive for being successful, plain and simple. If you come in with a negative body language, people are going to read that straight up. So you only serve yourself best when you are getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful. So what you can do right now is you can start to work on that, because your emotions drive your emotions. So what I want everybody to do is I want you to stand up. And I want you to shake it out. I want you to get loose. I want you to dance. I want you to do jumping jacks. I want you to go crazy. On the count of 3, I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Get that blood flowing, because when the blood is flowing to your brain, you are getting yourself into a state conducive for receiving information and retaining information. Endorphins are firing. You're getting yourself prepared. And that is what it's all about when it comes to getting yourself into a state, a physiological state conducive for being successful. You should be doing this before every mentor meeting, even if it's on the phone. You should be doing this before career fairs. Do a power post. Get yourself ready. Get psyched. Get moving. Get that blood flowing, because when you do, you radiate positive energy. You give off this feeling like, man, this person's got this. Like, if you ever felt like, man, I'm around someone and they just give me creepy vibes, like that person's got bad body language, almost definitely. So on the flip side, you don't want to be that person. So get yourself into a state conducive for being successful. Move around, get going, because your emotions drive your emotions. When you move around, when you go crazy, by the way, this isn't a popularity contest. I don't care if you're in a public place. Who cares if other people judge you? You've got nothing to lose. Just get yourself going, because I want you to make the most out of this program. The second key is the story. What is the story you tell yourself? Why are you going to be successful? I mean, if you tell yourself like, man, I'm an introvert, so therefore I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or, oh man, like, I don't know if I have enough knowledge or skills to, get a mentor, or I'm going to ask dumb questions. Like, if you tell yourself that, you will manifest that outcome. I can promise you, whatever goal you set for yourself, you will achieve. I think the saying goes, whatever you say you are, you are. And that's plain and simply it. So if you're coming at this mentor experience, or any experience for that matter, with the mentality that you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be successful. I like to think of it as shoot for the stars and land on the moon, rather than shoot for the moon and land in nowhere's land. Ultimately, for you, it's about how can you set yourself up with a mindset, with a vision for why you're going to be successful. I mean, when Michael Jordan dribbles the ball down the court and it goes 3, 2, 1, and he drills the game-winning shot, in his mind, he's played that situation multiple times. Why not do that for your situation when you're going into meeting with a mentor, meeting with another professional? Why not? You got nothing to lose. Like, I want you to almost envision literally, what are you wearing? What are they wearing? How are you shaking hands? When you're asking questions, what is the best possible outcome? How are they reacting to you? What does that look like? If you can visualize this, you can give yourself a paradigm for what success looks like. And then the last part is the strategy. So what are the things that you can do on a routine, regular basis to get yourself into a position to be successful when it comes to meeting with your mentor, when it comes to networking? What can you do to get yourself there? This is all about the things that you can do on a regular basis. Now, for today's workshop, the routine is to have one informational interview per week with any professional. I don't care who it is. It could be a friend. It could be a professor. It could be a family friend. It could be anybody that you may know. Ideally, it's someone in your field of interest, but practice talking with them, because the only way you're going to get good at having these conversations with people is practice. especially if you're someone that's really technical. Maybe you're an engineer and you're thinking to yourself like, man, I got the hard skills, I got the grades, but you know what? It's about being well-rounded. Like, you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't introduce yourself, no one's going to hire you. If you can talk about how your skills transfer in a workplace and you can interact with the team, build yourself within a culture, you will get yourself into a really solid position, especially if you've got the technical skills. So it's all about how can you put yourself in a position to be successful, and how can you start doing things that are regularly practicing your abilities to be better at those things. So when it comes to the actual practice, I want you to find a friend, be a different friend that you had from the first workshop. I want you to ask them about their life story, starting with kindergarten. I want you to ask them what their dream job is. And then I want you to ask them where they see themselves in the next 5 years. And literally during this conversation, I don't want you to talk at all except for asking questions. I want you to take down notes, and I want you to focus on purely active listening. That's it. Because if you can do that, you can start getting better at learning about people. Because at the end of the day, people love to talk about themselves. I like to use the analogy to convey this as like the group picture. When you take a group picture with people, who do you look at first, last, and most often? It's yourself. Of course it's yourself. And when it comes to relationship building, when it comes to talking with people, it's the exact same way. People love to talk about themselves. So when it comes to building relationships, focus on them. Focus all about them. You don't have to give them some crazy elevator pitch or share with them your whole bio and resume, because you want to know what? You are not what interests them. Themselves are they are interested in themselves. If you can have a conversation about them, they will be genuinely interested in you because you're curious about them. So that's what I have to say about that. Those are the 3 keys to success for this program. And your deliverable, take a picture with that person, post it on our website. Alternatively, you can share with us on LinkedIn. What did you learn? Just tag us. The last part that I want to bring up is the referral program for next semester. So we're already starting to take in enrollment for next semester. Very excited about that. If you refer 3 students to sign up for the program next semester, your deposit for the program cut in half. If you refer at least 6 people for the program next semester, you don't even have to pay a deposit. You're good to go for next semester. It's just another way to encourage more students to take advantage and to get access to this mentor experience and get access to this program. And yeah, I want to leverage you, someone who's already going through it, to share your experience with them. And I want to reward you for sharing those experiences with your peers in your chapter. So let's jump in to our guest speaker. So our guest speaker today is Jordan Paris. So Jordan is a 22-year-old author, podcast host, former college athlete, seen in Men's Health, Yahoo Finance, MarketWatch, and NASDAQ. Jordan's podcast, Growth Mindset University, was ranked number 3 in Apple's training category and is consistently ranked in the top 10. In education, one of Apple's most competitive categories, the show was ranked number 15. On the show, he interviews young and up-and-comers and the most successful people on the planet Earth, like James Altucher, Kevin Rudolf, Mark Manson, Dan Millman, Naveen Jain, and Dan Lok. Jordan founded the WordPress Rocketeer, where he focused on developing engaging websites to launch his clients' dreams to infinity and beyond. Now he and his team have shifted their focus to doing marketing for serious podcasters. His approach to life and business is simple yet powerful. Don't make a living, design a life. With this creator's mentality, Jordan has been able to produce outstanding results for himself and challenge others to rise above circumstances, break the mold of society, and take control of their lives. You can visit him at jordanparis.com. Without further ado, Jordan Paris. Thanks for joining me, Jordan.
Garrett, all I'm going to say before the intro, what you said, just well said. That was awesome. You got me there. I'm going to use the question, what was your dream in kindergarten? What was your dream job? I like that one.
Well, I like talking about people's story because so often people will tell their story in the form of what's happened within the last year or two. They don't talk about the full background. And I want to get to know your full background. I mean, I don't know if I shared this with you. I shared this with the students. But for me, from age 15 to 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department.
Wow.
I got 5 felony distribution charges and was expelled from school. And that's what got me into mentorship. I mean, I'm so passionate about the power of vulnerability because I know that when you're vulnerable, that is the most attractive trait you can possibly possess. And so I share this story with people because although you may never have ever been a drug dealer, I don't expect you to, but you can relate to the idea of making a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. We all make mistakes, but I am living proof that you can overcome it, that you can get opportunities and you can create opportunities for yourself. You can be successful even after you've made a mistake. So I know a lot of times we put up on this pedestal all the things that we think need to happen in our life, but in reality, if they don't work out, it's okay. They're just growth They're growth opportunities for the next thing. That failure is the stepping stone to next and more opportunities.
I agree. It is.
So Jordan, I'd love to ask you, how have you gotten to where you're at today, and when have you faced adversity? How did you overcome it?
Yeah. You always face adversity. You never get rid of it. I got to where I am today because it's very natural. One thing led to another. I mean, oftentimes I sit here and try to explain like this, that, the other thing, how this happened. It's like, I don't know, man. It just happened. Like I'm just doing what's natural to me. So it was just it was a series of decisions, a lot of things falling into place, very natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of the people in the audience, they're your age. They're 22 years old. I'm this old fart at 27, but the point I'm making is not everybody has made the decisions that you have made. I mean, you created Growth Mindset University, which I think I share that similar mentality of when you see a need, you took it. When I started this company, I was a sophomore at Indiana. I mean, that was a thing that I was passionate about. What was for you, I call it the screw up moment. What was the moment? What was the issue that you saw, and what was the thing that you felt so compelled to do to change?
Education. I think the current education system is just garbage. And we've talked about this on the podcast so many times with Dan Lok, James Altucher, Naveen Jain. We've talked about this time and again. And the consensus is that a revolution is needed because we're just not learning the things of relevance to the world today. For example, I was a marketing major for a while. I didn't stick with it, but we're learning things that worked in the 90s. I love marketing, but just weren't learning things that work today. Not learning any of the things that Russell Brunson or Jay Abraham or any of these people. Or Dan Kennedy or any of these people, we're teaching, we're learning from like this McGraw-Hill education textbook with generic cookie cutter McGraw-Hill slides. The whole class is a cookie cutter class. The homeworks are just McGraw-Hill. You just click through them and still get an A. Everyone games the system. The test, like the teachers don't even know what's going to be on the test because it's auto-generated by McGraw-Hill's test bank of questions. And we bubble it in the answers into a Scantron. Scantron goes into a machine, comes out with a number that somehow defines us. And I just got so fed up with the education system because I love learning. I love education, but the way most college programs are run today is just a train wreck. The material and syllabi are decades outdated. And we don't even consider the $1.6 trillion in student loan debt in America that is owed by I believe it's 44.2 million Americans owe a grand total of $1.6 trillion. The average person owes in excess of $37,000. Doctors owe in excess of $200,000 on average. Lawyers, $120,000. Like this sets even the $37,000. This is the kind of debt that sets people back decades, if not an entire lifetime. And people our age, Garrett, are buying homes and having children less often, even though they wanted to just as much as the previous generation. And I think student loan debt has plays a gigantic role in that. And so I just, for a number of reasons, it's a two-pronged problem here with the gargantuan amount of student loan debt and the total lack of any bang for your buck, just not learning too much. I mean, I'm so thrilled with your program. I think what you're doing is amazing. Like, love it. This is exactly what we need. But what's going on in universities, I think for the most part is just terrible. So, and for someone who loves learning like me, it was just a natural thing to do to start Growth Mindset University. This mythical university, bring it to life. This university of my dreams. Yeah.
And you have like hundreds of thousands of followers. I mean, you have tons of people that follow you and get on you. So, I mean, a thing or two about marketing. It's so funny. It's like we have these like experts, when it comes to like, oh, we're learning in marketing class, like how to build a following and how to build people to follow you or get to know you. And it's like,
we're not even learning that, man. By the way, By the way, do you mind? My computer's on like 8%. If I just grab my charger here,
Yeah, grab your charger.
is it okay? Sorry.
Totally.
Sorry. I was like looking at it in the corner of my screen. I'm gonna go under the desk real quick. But we were saying what we learned in marketing.
Yeah, totally. Well, then that's cool. And so while you're plugging in, I'm going to answer a couple of the fears that a couple of students mentioned. So Stefan, you mentioned that your top professional fear is probably stuttering. It's really hard to speak eloquently without a lot of ums and other fillers while I'm thinking. Stefan, I do it too. I just did it right there. What I would say is, at the end of the day, if you're coming from an authentic place, if you're sharing authentically, if you're being yourself, you can overcome that. I believe less people are going to judge you for the ums and the likes. Don't get me wrong. I'm, by the way, very guilty of it. And I try to improve that. I understand that it happens. It's part of speech. I think if you're consciously aware that you do that and you start to focus on saying it less, you'll become better at that. And then Angeline, you mentioned that your professional fear is initiating the conversation. It is initiating the conversation with the professional. So I think that's a great point. We're going to talk a little bit about that during the workshop today, about setting an agenda for the call. Because so often when we have conversations with people, especially professionals, it's all about, well, if we don't set an agenda, rather, it can go in any direction. So often I'll see students and I'll talk to them. They'll be like, yeah, I had an okay call with a professional, my mentor. But we talked a lot about this or that, and it wasn't really what I was interested in. And I don't know why I didn't like it as much. And I can tell you it was very likely because you didn't set the agenda for the conversation. And by the way, there's a huge difference. There's a big gap between being transactional in a conversation and setting the agenda. Being transactional is at the end of a conversation saying, hey, that was great. Does your company have any internships for me? Yeah. That's extremely transactional. But if setting an agenda is totally different. If you say at the very beginning of a call, say, hey, by the way, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. We have 30 minutes for this call if we need it all. Is that still all right with you? They're going to say, yeah, of course. By the way, by saying that, it just shows that you're cognizant of their time. And then you just say something along the lines of, so naturally, you're going to want to learn about me and why I reached out to you, why I signed up for this mentor program. And ultimately, I'll tell you, my goal is to ultimately work towards landing an internship. And I'm still building this experience about how to go about getting there. And obviously, I'm going to want to learn about you and how you got to where you're at today and any stories you may have to share with me, any advice you may have for me as I'm pursuing this goal of landing an internship. Does that sound all right with you? They're going to say, yeah, no, that sounds great. And you say, that's awesome. And you could even add in the final part of, by the end of this conversation, I would love if we could maybe, if we seem to hit it off, I'd love if we could talk about setting up a second call or a follow-up opportunity. Does that sound all right with you? And they're going to say, yeah, of course. So right then and there, what you've done is you've set the tone for the conversation. You've got them thinking about what you're looking for, that being an internship or whatever you're interested in doing. And then they can convey their guidance and advice to you based on what you've already told them that you're interested in. What do you think about that, Jordan? Do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. I'm cognizant of, it depends, like phone calls, I don't know. I have like mixed feelings about phone calls. Yeah. I posted something about phone calls yesterday. And I got and it's worth noting. So take everything I say about this with a grain of salt, because I got so much hate for this that I had to turn off comments. Like it was bad. So I said, like, random strangers want to hop on a phone call to chat, or pick your brain, and they ask, are you free? And the next line was, no, I'm expensive. It came off very abrasive. I get it. But I'm very, like, I try to be super cognizant of busy people's time. And like, I don't know. Sorry.
No, I see where you're coming from, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
I would say, I think that's good. No, and I like having these multiple perspectives. So I think that the point that you brought up is a very good point. We talked about this the other night. One, we don't like the term "pick your brain."
It's not good. Like imagine, like literally imagine it. Literally, like it's a disturbing image. Picking someone's brain. What?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And it's so funny. We talked about this the other night. At the end of the day, it's not about I guess, yeah, definitely not about picking somebody's brain, but it is definitely expressing genuine curiosity. I mean, it kind of, based on what you've described, it sounds like you're talking about someone that did very little to no research about who you are,
Exactly.
why they reached out to you, and just asked for a phone call.
Exactly.
And that's difficult. But if you do some background research, now, by the way, your mentor, the person you're trying to reach out to, may not have published any articles. They might not have done anything in the public eye, and that's okay. You can do research about their company. You can say, hey, and by the way, I would say in my experience, if they haven't published anything, that means typically not many people are reaching out to them for a lot of things because maybe they haven't put themselves out there like that. Meaning that when someone does reach out to them, they have a higher propensity to actually answer that call. So you can come to them and say, hey, I'm a college student. By the way, being a college student, you've got such an advantage because when people hear that you're a college student, they
Yeah.
love the idea of helping you. So you can say, hey, I'm a college student. I am pursuing a mechanical engineering major. I'm pursuing a marketing major. I'm pursuing a finance major. And I'm interested in getting into banking, or I'm interested in getting into this type of field. I noticed that you're in it. I was wondering if you and I could schedule a really quick phone call. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your work.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is spot on, because when I would reach out to like, these really busy and important people for like my podcast, like, for example, Mark Manson, I literally say, I am a 21-year-old, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I think it does provide a distinct advantage. I do feel like it makes the other person think they're like giving back by giving you their time. I use that a lot. Yeah.
Totally. And it's more than just giving back because it is a two-way street because people want to know what's going on with the world from younger people right now. And they're not used to it. They don't have that perspective. And on top of that, yeah, everybody likes the idea of paying it forward. Like people love the idea of if I can help you in any or some or any way possible, I'm going to do what I can. And you got nothing to lose but to reach out. Once you're a little bit older, it's a lot more difficult. I can tell you that. That's my experience. But yeah, so I guess with that said, when it comes to actually once you've gotten the conversation, what does it look like in terms of how do I build that positive rapport? How do I build that positive relationship? Do you have any advice or suggestions on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a touches game, it's never like, I don't know. I try not to ask for anything, too much. I try to be like very non-needy. Like I am Mr. Not needy. And I don't know. I just continue reaching out over time. Like I'll say, this is a brilliant reach out from my friend, David Burkus, who wrote the book Friend of a Friend, is one of the foremost experts on networking in the world, in my opinion. And he uses, hey, Garrett, I was just thinking of you. I hope you're well. No reply needed. And the ironic part about saying no reply needed and being so non-needy is that it actually almost guarantees that you're going to get a response. As I've found in my experience, whenever I say no reply needed, it's like a guaranteer of a response. I think being non-needy is attractive. I really do. So in business and in life, really. So so I have this built into my calendar at 9 a.m. every morning to reconnect / re-engage with my weak and loose ties. And that's generally the message that I'll send. It's evolved over the past year, but that's where I'm at right now. And it'll continue to evolve and continue to get better. Yeah.
That's a really cool piece of advice. I've never heard of that before. I think that's really unique. I love that. So I think I want to dig deeper into that. So, because for college students, they may have met somebody. Maybe they met a professional 6 months ago. Maybe they met a professional a year ago. They had a great conversation. Maybe they had a couple great conversations. Never stayed in touch. Never followed up. What is your advice? What are your suggestions to staying in touch and maintaining that relationship over time?
Yeah, the systems need to be put in place. For me, when I went away to college, you no longer live with your mom. So my calendar is now my mom. It's like something pops up on the screen to do something and I do it. Like every single thing is in my calendar, including that 9 a.m. reconnect / re-engage. I'll scroll back and my messages, from months ago or weeks ago or whatever. I'll scroll back in my LinkedIn messages. I'll type in random letters in Gmail, see who pops up. I have this tool called Boomerang for Gmail, so I'll send an email to Garrett today. thanking him, following up with him, like, hey, Garrett, really enjoyed this, blah, blah, blah. Making a point to stay in touch. And then on Boomerang for Gmail, I'll just check the box to have this message pop up in my inbox. Like me and Garrett's thread will pop up in my inbox a month from now. And that's my cue. And I can add a note to it with like special instruction for myself, but I don't really need to do that, but when that message pops back up in my inbox, because Boomerang for Gmail, because I checked that box, that's my cue to reconnect with Garrett, which is exactly what's going to happen. So I hope, so get ready for it, Garrett.
That's awesome.
And I do that. I do that with everyone.
I think that's gold. I think that's a great piece of advice. I think if you're a student and you're thinking to yourself like, man, I just had a great call with a mentor, a professional, maybe you put in your physical calendar, maybe you forget to, if you set up Boomerang, does Boomerang do it for everybody, or does it only do it for the people that you select?
So there is, at the free version, it does not do it. In the $15 a month version, it does not do it. But there's one that's, I think, $45 per month or $50 per month, whatever it is, that it does do it with everyone automatically. But not with, you have to pay a little. And I think it's worth it. So, it is.
Shameless plug, but it's good. I like it.
I don't even have a freaking affiliate link for this crap. I have no affiliation with the company at all whatsoever. Boomerang. I think you can get like Boomerang for Outlook too. It's great. And because I think, with my school email, there's a, they use Outlook. I don't really use my school email for everyone or anything, but if you need to, Boomerang for Outlook, I don't take my word for it. Don't quote me on it, but I think it exists.
That's cool. No, I like it. I mean, that's definitely something I'm going to check out. But that's cool. That's good to know. I bet even like just the basic version for students to get started with is a really cool thing. I know I'm going to definitely check it out. But I want to now start talking a little bit more about, in terms of when you're having the conversation, strong listening skills. What advice do you have to ensure that you are actively listening during a conversation with somebody?
Well, first off, I like to signal that I'm listening, in my body language. I'll cock the neck a little bit and I'll show them my neck, raise my chin up, and maybe even if I have a desk around me, I'll put my my hand on my chin, kind of, if I had a beard here, I'd stroke it, and I'm thinking and I'm listening and I'm really pondering what you're saying here. So I like to make the other person feel good in that way. It's easier to do it in person, but I'll still do it like, podcasts from time to time, or in a situation like this. I like to, for whatever reason, I just read because I'm a big student of human nature and body language and communication. I read that, I learned from Mark Bowden, gave this brilliant TED talk on body language that got over 1 million views. I learned from him, a friend of mine. I had him on the podcast a while ago, and we keep in touch, of course, because, these systems in place. And he taught me about, because I asked him, how to show people that you're a better listener, and that's exactly what he said to do, and I use that. It's almost like common sense, though. I feel like you just kind of do it naturally anyway. But how to become a better listener? I like to sometimes I repeat back a little bit of what Garrett just said. Just almost like paraphrase it in like a word or two, or maybe even a sentence, and make him really feel heard. That's always like a good little wow factor. And I'm, as I'm saying this, I do this a lot, but I with everything, there's room to improve. There's so much room for me to get better at it. But those are the things. It's really about making other people feel heard, in my opinion. I hope that suffices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially on that behavioral psychology, I met with another behavioral psychologist, and she had mentioned that if you turn your head to like 1 or 2 o'clock and then go like this and nod, you will encourage them to continue to participate and engage with you and share more. Nodding and going like this, they're going to keep talking. Yeah.
You know what else too, Garrett? Brilliant what you said. Minimal encouragers. I'll say, "Oh, really? Is that so?" and they'll expand upon their point that they just made. Minimal encouragers is what it's called.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's cool. I like it. The other thing I like when it comes to active listening is literally taking notes, like physical pen and paper notes.
Yeah.
Because I think some people think, oh, well, will I be offensive if I'm taking a pen and paper note? I mean, my personal opinion is not. Now, I will say my personal opinion is I'm not a fan of taking notes on a phone. I think phones create barriers. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Big barrier. Even when I take my phone out for like a second, even if it's just, I say I'm going to take my phone out to, text our friends, wondering where they are, where, they're still meeting us, whatever. I feel so guilty for the 25 seconds that my phone is out. Like I just feel the freaking pressure. It's just like, I think it is one of the rudest things to have your phone out while you're in the presence of other people, even to have it on the table while it's in there. Like, with my immediate family, like when I'm, the times that I'm with them, like that's kind of the rule, like no phones on the table. Because with the phone on the table, what you're saying is you're just not that important to me right now.
Yeah. It reminds me of that Simon Sinek speech. I think, have you ever like been in at a dinner with somebody or at a conversation with somebody that have their phone out and somebody calls them and they stop the conversation, look at the phone, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to answer that. It's like, oh, golly, thank the world that you are going to honor me with your presence of not totally interrupting this conversation for this alternative phone call.
Someone that's not there.
Goodness. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it. I think phones are distracting. So I think when it comes to the conversations, active listening, taking physical notes on pen and paper is 100% something that's cool.
Yeah. Listening for specific things. Right.
Yeah.
And the more specific, the better.
Elaborate.
Just picking out something that you said, like, for example, when, in the intro to this, and I say, oh my God, dude, I love the question, the kindergarten question. Like, I'm just going to start asking people, when you were in kindergarten, like, what was your dream job? Like, what did you want to be? And I said that specifically, you listen for a specific thing to pick out other than, and when I have nothing else to say, and I've said this during our conversation thus far too, I was like, yeah, it's brilliant. Like, that's not specific. Anyone can say, love your work. That's lazy.
That's true.
It doesn't make people feel heard or cared about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. By the way, I want to just iterate. It's not what was your dream job in kindergarten, is tell me your story starting with kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
What is your dream job? So I like to distinguish that because so often our stories, our history make us who we are today. Like sometimes we'll have something that happened to us at 12 years old or 15 years old that totally changed how we got to where we're at today and what we're doing now. And I don't think we share that enough. I think often we assume people know our past or know why we would do the things that we do. In reality, we all have different motives for everything. And then two, I see often, because we don't know this past history, we really struggle to connect with people. So by asking them that story, like, tell me your story starting with kindergarten, they're much more likely to share with you their background and how they got to where they're at today. I find that to be a really positive question.
Mm-hmm. When I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a garbage man. It was pure gluttony and fun. I just liked riding on the side of the grocery carts. So I thought it'd be fun to ride on the side of a garbage truck. For real. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you, in terms of when you're having informational interviews with people, what are go-to questions you like to ask? What are questions that you like to ask to really get them engaged and really get them inspired? I mean, you've had conversations with some of the most inspirational, influential people in the world on your podcast. What are questions you like to ask them? What are questions that you feel like really engage them?
It's very rarely, there are very rarely repeat questions, because I think that's what makes my show different. In the same way that I listen to people, I prepare for my guests. I listen to them on other shows. I listen to them or I read their books, and I pick out very specific things to ask them, with the idea being that they probably haven't been asked this 1,000 times before. Because if I just wanted to emulate the same interview that they've done 300 times, like, that'd be a really easy thing to do. But what value is that adding? Like, I don't need to do that. It's already out there, So it's very dependent, and it's really dependent on what what their work is. Very few repeat questions. Yeah, like I try to pick out very specific things. So, but there are like two questions I can think of that sometimes I do ask a lot. One of them is the last question that I ask just about every time, not every time, but just about. And it's, if you could create a course of your creation or otherwise, what would it be? If you could teach a course at a university, course of your creation or otherwise, what would it be? But that's the final question. And that's where the conversation ends. But to stimulate conversation in the beginning, sometimes I'll ask, if they're really interesting, I'll ask, and this is this might be like a derivative of like Tim Ferriss. When people ask what you do, how do you answer that? Because I find it so interesting that people who, very successful people, like genuinely successful people, they don't really feel the need to gloat about themselves. They just say, for example, a gentleman who's my age, 22, who his name is Matt Nelson, and he, if you've ever seen those thoughts of dog pages on like Twitter and Instagram, and we rate dogs, that he has tens of millions of followers on these accounts, and he's monetized it really well. And when people ask him what he does, he goes, "Oh, I work in social media." That's it. So, and I find that people that aren't like genuinely successful, people that are not, that don't really have the confidence, they feel the need to fill this inferiority gap with by boasting, by eliciting. When people ask what they do, maybe they display performance behaviors, and they need to seem more successful and richer than they actually are. And so they go on and paint themselves in this grand image. Whereas like the real successful people, it's like work in digital marketing, So I like asking that question if I do ask that question, it's usually like pretty much in the beginning, and it stimulates conversation. Yeah.
Cool. And that's interesting. I think that's a really cool story. And by the way, I think that's a really on a deeper, more meta perspective. I think that's a really good way about looking about your life and how you view your things. It's like going back to this whole notion. I've seen this at career fairs before, where students will try to share about all of their accolades, all of their internships, all their things in their elevator pitch.
Oh,
to try to stimulate. Yeah, go ahead.
The elevator pitch. Exactly. Yes. But continue, please. You got me there. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I just feel like when I see that, and you'll see it and you almost want to cringe when you're at a career fair, because you see and you're like, man, you've rehearsed this so many times and you sound so robotic and it doesn't sound natural. And at the end of the day, people don't care about you. They care about themselves. People are inherently selfish and they like to talk about things that interest them. Yes. And so my mentality about it is you'd be better off. You'd be so much better served asking questions, because people will get a much greater perspective about who you are based on the questions you ask. If you ask really good, engaging questions, which I think can be like at a career fair, say, hey, what can a student do to better prepare him or herself for a career at your company, or just learning a little bit about what they have to say about the role itself, as opposed to just data dumping your whole life to them. I can promise you, the faster you speak, the more knowledge they are not getting from you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, ask questions. And it is so, the elevator pitch of puking your entire resume, yes, is so cringeworthy, to your point. In advanced public speaking a couple of weeks ago, and at Florida Gulf Coast University, we had to give an elevator pitch speech. And it's exactly the way you described it, Garrett. So robotic, so rehearsed, memorized, which fine, whatever. But it was so evident that it was rehearsed. That was the problem. It's okay if you rehearse it and it doesn't really sound rehearsed, but it was bad. And everyone's like puking out their entire resume. And I get up there and I'm like, first off, I just for context, and I was giving the teacher, I was literally questioning the assignment. I was like, what if your elevator pitch is 2 seconds, is one line, because it had to be like a minute. because I would never walk up to someone and then start talking about myself for a minute. Like it would only be a sentence maximum. So and she's like, well, we want you to do it this way. And I'm like, whatever. So I get up there and I'm like, just for context, clarification, I would never in a million years do this. I think the worst thing you can do is start talking about yourself and not shut up. I think and I literally said exactly what you said. The way to do it is to, like, I would, in the perfect real world scenario, I would be the questioner. I would be asking questions. But exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Described it better than I could, Garrett. Great.
That's cool. No, I'm glad. And by the way, we do have 15 minutes. If you have any questions while you're watching this right now, post it in the comment area. I've got a few more questions that I want to ask Jordan. So I want to talk about building deep relationships and the concept of that. Do you have any suggestions, any thoughts about how do I build a deep relationship with somebody?
That's a very tough question. Like a lot of this stuff, I'm still working on it myself, but I choose, I reach out to a lot of people, right? And with these practices and habits that we talked about earlier, and these appointments in my calendar at 9 a.m. But, while those may, turn into friends, not always like, deep, like really close friends, but I don't know. I have a group of close friends that I like to invest time in a lot. Like friends that I'm with this weekend right now that I consistently invest significant amounts of time in. I don't, Garrett, I really don't have anything unique to say here, other than, I've chosen I've chosen a good circle, and I continue to invest time in them. I think it's just that simple. But as far as like, these connections that I make online, of course, the best thing you can do then is to take these connections offline. And I plant the seed, like I now I'm like hesitant to say it to you. I would have said it to you otherwise, Garrett, but now I don't want to be like too cliche, now that I'm like saying it here, but I'll plant the seed, like after we get off, when we're getting off the call with whoever, I'm like, I look forward to shaking your hand, and I have in a spreadsheet, my social media friends, because it's hard to remember everyone, especially when people that you haven't actually met, like, and seen their real face in person. So I got to keep a spreadsheet, and I have all their locations there. And the goal is always to take this offline connection online. And that's what makes it an exponentially deeper relationship.
Totally. I like that. Well, for me, I think, and I want to tie this back to the students, because you might be thinking to yourself, like, okay, cool, I might be connecting with these people on LinkedIn, but for a lot of these students, they're just getting their LinkedIn started. They're just starting to connect with people. Like, I've been on a basic level. I think definitely if you can meet them in person, that's amazing. My biggest suggestion, and I think that you can do this to build a deep relationship, really, it has to do with pain. And when I say pain, I mean, think about, who do you share your pain points with, and who do you share your glory with? When you just got that internship, when you just got that promotion, when you just got that certification, when you just got accepted to that graduate program, who do you share that with? You share them with everybody. You share it with everybody. Everybody gets this news. Everybody knows it's posted on your LinkedIn. How many people you see with, like, first name, last name, PhD, MA, JD, all these different accolades that they've got behind their name, which is amazing, fantastic, good for you. That's awesome. But how about the pain points? Like, who do you share with when you just found out that you have cancer and you might have to move and potentially change your work or try to transition your work to a place that's close to a hospital that specializes in the cancer that you have? Like, who do you share that with? These are tight people. Those are your people. Those are the people you're real close with. Now, fortunately, crazy enough, a lot of times we don't actually share that information with our closest people. Sometimes we're yearning to share that information with people, but more often than not, people don't ask. And so what you can do as a student, what I found to be really effective, is to ask for that pain. Say, hey, what is one of the biggest concerns you've got going on in your life? And it might not be cancer. It could be something else. It could be something crazy. It could be something much less significant. And now some people might not feel comfortable opening up right away on that. They might say, I don't have any concerns right now with my work, or I don't have nothing really is something that concerns me, or nothing that I'd be willing to share right now. And then you can transition that question by saying, you know what? Well, when you got out of college and you went into your career, what was something that was unexpected that you had to transition to that might have been giving you a little bit of adversity? That's a great way to transition that. And then you learn about that and you say, well, how long did that go on for? And what did you do to try to solve that? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not important, 10 being extremely important, how important is it for you to solve that from here on out? Or do you suggest that people start taking preemptive measures to start trying to figure out a solution for that before they even get into the career? Like, by asking those questions, you can get to their pain, get to like who they are as a person and what's going on in their world. And I found that to be extremely rewarding for building a deep relationship, because then they've invested in you. Once you've gotten them to open up on their vulnerability level, bam, you got them. Like, they're yours. They're like, damn, I just shared so much information with this person. I'm connected. That's one thing that you can do. And I by the way, as students, you're listening to this, I strongly encourage that you ask this to your mentor. Say, hey, what's some of your biggest concerns for your work? And like I said, they might put up this wall. Everyone puts up this wall of everything's going amazing, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
We all do that. But ask them in different ways. Say, hey, what was something that was unexpected that you had to face? Like, people will admit adversity. That's the reason why they've signed up to be a mentor, is because more often than not, they face some adversity in their life and they want to share about that. What do you think about that, Jordan?
It's a lot. Yeah. There's some very stimulating questions for sure.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, really, what do you think about the pain component of it in terms of building a deep relationship?
Yeah. I mean, you pick and choose the people, you share that, you share that we all do, sometimes not, we don't share that with everyone. I tend to keep it to myself and my mom. Like that's who I go to, or my friend Patrick. But I think it can be like it can be provide, like, if you are willing to share that, or if someone else is willing to share that with you, it can provide a much different type of connection. Like, because often this isn't something that they share with everyone. And if you can get that out of them in a way that's not like too intrusive, and you're not like prying it out of them and trying too hard, then it can reap great benefits in the relationship. So yeah, I agree with you.
I think it's a really good point that you bring up there. Yeah, that's a really, really good perspective. You don't want to go over the top with asking for their pain, but I do think it is important. But that's a really cool point. I would say when it comes to that vulnerability is so crucial, and it might even help that you share something vulnerable about yourself that might stimulate that. I know when I share my background about, hey, I was a drug dealer and I got caught and I got arrested and I got expelled. And then when I came back, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and I didn't care because I had already, I had no social capital. I can say that more often than not, people hear that story and they share with me. They're like, man, Garrett, I feel so much more connected with you. And I feel so much more comfortable sharing with you this crazy personal thing that happened to me. And so I found that when you share, or when you can get others to share with you, that bond can grow and become very deep.
Yeah, you give to get, and that's a great point that you make as well. When you share it yourself first, when you go first, then the other person is much more apt to share those pains themselves.
Yeah. Stefan's got a question, but before we get to Stefan's question, I want to transition a little bit because I know you've got a little bit of insight on this. I'd love to ask you, does your vocal inflection matter? Same with your body language. What are your thoughts on how can you have the optimal vocal inflection? So like how you change the octave of your voice as well as your body language for meeting with somebody for the very first time, giving a positive impression.
Yeah, it matters a lot. And I will say that Chase Hughes and Mark Bowden are much better qualified to speak on this than I am. Oh, and Vanessa Van Edwards, some experts in the field of human behavior and communication that I would definitely turn to for this. But I try to, I like to breathe in. And when you speak on the out breath, it's much more authoritative. Whereas when you speak on the in breath, it's much more like, it doesn't, it's faster, and it's a little, it seems like you're a little more stressed. But when you speak on the out breath, it's much more relaxed and slower. So I think your breath plays a big role in your inflection. I always think of, as far as inflection, like I think as far as making a sale, you never want to, think about, okay, I'll pose it this way. Think about the difference in these two statements. Their price will be $2,500, or the price will be $2,500. One of them, the first one, sounds like a question. You're begging them to negotiate with you. The price will be $2,500. It's on an uptone. You want to end on a downtone when you're asking, or when you're really driving home a point, not an uptone. I catch, that's like the number one thing I catch, is when people are not confident in something that they're saying. They will end on the uptone.
That is so funny that you say that, because I literally heard that exact same thing. It's a great point. I met a guy at a conference in May, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, my name's Garrett. Nice to meet you. What's your name?" He's like, "My name's Thomas." And I'm like, "Is it Thomas? Is that a question, or are you telling me?" And he did the same thing about his company. He's like, "I work for XYZ company," and I'm like, "Do you work for XYZ company?"
That is a very unconfident person. Yeah. You can tell it's very indicative of a lot of things. Wow.
Yeah, I was like very surprised by that. And then obviously he was in sales because we're at this conference, and I'm like, man, okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah. He's got some things to work on with his inflections.
That's for sure. No, that's a really good point. So Stefan has the question: when is the most optimal time to link on LinkedIn? It feels so just genuine to just try and mass connect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That exactly. When people, I mean, it's different for me because I get a lot of comments and profile views. But when somebody comments on my post something thoughtful, that's when I'll send a connection request, because the way I have it actually set up is where you can't send a connection request to me unless you have my email. So I don't know. I like to be in control of it. So that's, and I like a highly engaged following, and that's the way you do it. Like, oh, they commented on my post. I would certainly welcome future comments, because that's how your posts get bigger, and that's how you gain more attention. I would certainly welcome more of that. Why don't I send him a connection request so he continues to see my posts, so that he may perhaps continue to comment on these posts? I used to do it when people would just like my post. LinkedIn changed their user interface, but maybe it was like 7-8 months ago, when people would like your post, and you click on, like the likes, like who, the number of likes on your post, and everyone pops up, a connect button would appear next to them. Now it doesn't do that. It just shows you the number of likes. So that's not applicable anymore. So it's tough to say. At this point, because at this point I only send connection requests really to people who comment, and people who view my profile. That also, if you view my profile and you look like my avatar listener, like who I could like really picture listening to my podcast, then I send you a connection request. If you don't look like that person, that avatar, I don't send you a connection request. So like, yeah, that's how I send a connection request to people that are going to likely be valuable followers and connections. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I think I like that perspective. I think for even non-content creators, so I mean, obviously you're creating content on a very significant level. I think for someone like Stefan, that might be more or less just casually connecting with people on LinkedIn. My advice, we actually have a video on the AIM dashboard where literally I walk you through connecting with people. Like we have a template that you can copy and paste. It says, hi, insert name. I'm a sophomore at XYZ school. I'm studying this and I'm really interested in this. I would love to chat and learn a little bit more about your work. Bam, sincerely, Stefan. Like, I think that is something that you can use, and it's like a 2-3 minute video. It's really quick, but I literally walk through how to go about doing that. I think you can go, like if you go to LinkedIn in the search bar, you can type in the name of a company you're really interested in. And when you type in that name, you just click see all 1,000 XYZ employees on LinkedIn. And then you filter it based on the location that you're looking for and then the type of work that you want them to do. And then you literally find that person, say, hey, Jenny, James, Jeffrey, whatever, I'm interested in your work. I would love to learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing with that. And that's just fascinating to me.
Can I give you a really cheesy one that?
Please.
Yeah, I guarantee that nobody else is going to use this except you if you take this. You look up, you filter the search, right? In someone in the company that you want to work for, in the location, whatever. Send them a connection with the personalized note. Say, hey, so-and-so, hey, Garrett, I want to be you when I grow up. Send. It's so cheesy, but I think it's flattering. So like I got a card. I got a thank you card. Yeah, he's shaking your head, but I got a thank you card like that the other day. And it's like I actually have it in the other room over there that from a kid that literally said his name's Lucas. Yeah. He wrote a nice little message, and then the last line was, I want to be you. Like, yeah, and I was like, that's cool, man. Yeah.
My only qualm with that is because I think I think it's sometimes a little weird to say that, but I think
for sure. I like being weird. I like it. I'm weird. No, I'm just weird.
I think I heard Tony Robbins talk about it like this. There was someone who came up to Tony Robbins and he said, hey man, in like 5 years, I'm going to be you. I'm going to be at the same level as you. And Tony Robbins like, you'll be if you are, I believe it, but you're going to be where I was 5 years ago. In 5 years, I'm going to be me 5 years ahead of right now. I'm always growing. Like that assumes that I'm stagnant. I'm never stagnant. And so as a human, as an inherent person, like you're never going to be staying the same. So I see what you're saying. I just think everyone is going to ultimately end up being their own selves. Now, people are on obviously different tracks. The other thing I may not necessarily agree with on that is that pivot. I mean, people will pivot. People will learn information. And when you tell somebody like, hey, I want to be you, and then you end up learning like, I don't know if I like that career path, like don't feel obligated to keep going down the path if you don't like it. I mean, I know a guy who was a physician who ended up hating being a doctor and ended up starting a bakery and he loves his life. But, like that happened. And that's the thing. But I can say that like you have to believe in yourself and know what you're learning and be able to take control of your own life as you learn more information.
For sure. I think there's several different approaches you can take here.
Awesome. Yeah. But I think that's an interesting one. And I think if you're a student, you're like contemplating it, give it a shot. I think it can't hurt. Yeah, well, I think this was awesome. Stefan had a final comment. He just said he loves the loose ties, just being able to stay on top of that. He thought that was really valuable. I thought that was really valuable too. I think that's something that everybody can be better at. I know I have a Word doc of everybody that I want to stay in touch with or that I send updates to once a quarter or whatever, but it's not really a great, very organized system. I think what you're describing with Boomerang is awesome. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I will say too, I mean, without the help of Boomerang, it doesn't happen. And without it being in my calendar, it doesn't happen. So when I was putting it in my calendar a long time ago, it says, like, I don't know, I check the box to have this event repeat every single day. And so it does. Like it's automatic now. Like I don't even have to think about it. It just happens.
That's cool. Well, awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you could be here for this workshop. Final comment, your routine, set up one informational interview with a different person every single week. Just get in the habit of doing this, whether it be a friend, a family friend, a professor, anybody, a GA, doesn't matter. Meet with people, get to know them, get to know their stories, learn about them. For your practice, I want you to meet with a friend, not someone that you worked with last time. Ask them about their life story, starting with kindergarten, what their dream job is and where they want to be in 5 years. Focus only on them. Don't talk about yourself. Only ask questions. take down notes, take a selfie with that person, upload it to our website. Alternatively, post what you learned about that person on LinkedIn and tag us. That's another way you can go about doing it. And the final point, the referral program, we're opening up student signups for next semester. I love if you could help encourage students in your organization to get involved with the program next semester, to get them access to this. If you refer 3 students, half off your deposit next semester. If you refer 6 or more, don't even have to pay a deposit next semester. It's just a way that I want to reward back to you for encouraging more people to get involved and taking advantage of getting a mentor and getting access to this program. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful weekend, and good night, everybody. Or I guess rather good afternoon and then good night. See you guys. Thanks for being here, Jordan.
Thank you.